Hi, for folks as you're joining in, feel free to write your name and where you're zooming in from in the chat. Hi, Tom. It's been a while. Nice to see you.
Nice seeing you too.
Welcome. For folks as you're joining, feel free to introduce yourself and share where you're zooming in from in the chat. Wonderful. And we'll get started. And as folks join in, continue to introduce yourself. But thank you all so much for being here today. I'm so honored to be collaborating with Dot in this discussion. At Curious Cardinals, we come across many college counselors, but there's few whose values align so much as with Dot's, and she brings enormous expertise and wisdom that we all have so much to learn from. So I'm really excited for this discussion today. Just to give a brief overview of the agenda, and then we'll be diving in. We're going to both give brief introductions, who we are and our backgrounds. Then Dot and I are going to have a bit of a fireside chat, as what's beautiful here is there's a lot we both want to learn from each other and discuss from our unique vantage points. And then Dot's going to facilitate a bit of a Q&A with two of our extraordinary mentors who are joining us. And then we'll open it up to questions from all. And Dot, before we dive in there, let me know if there's anything else you want to add.
No, that sounds great. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit more in depth later, but it's good to see you all here. Thanks for making it tonight. I see some familiar names and some new ones, so can't wait to get into it.
Awesome. Well, so nice to meet you all. I'm Audrey Wish. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Curious Cardinals. For a bit of background on our founding story, I started Curious Cardinals 5.5 years ago when I was a student at Stanford. I was a history major who thought I was pre-law with my 10-year life plan set and aspirations to be the next Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And then the pandemic hit and Stanford sent us home, and I started tutoring kids online. And working with those kids, I observed they weren't just struggling in school, they were disengaged and uninspired. They were absorbing and regurgitating what they read in a textbook, but they didn't know why it mattered. So that inspired me to apply what they were learning in school to their interests, their passions, the world around them, in hopes of making their learning feel like it actually mattered. One of them asked for math help, and I was not as passionate about math, so I called Alec. Alec was an aerospace engineer at Stanford who loved math, and instead of drilling math equations, Alec showed them how math makes airplanes fly. And suddenly the student wasn't just learning the math, he felt genuinely connected to it. And that's when we realized this is how education should work. There was a real magic to the near-peer, passion-based, project-based learning model. We like to say we were the spinach in their milkshakes, teaching them the fundamentals without them even realizing it. Now it's 5.5 years later. We're a team of 12 in San Francisco. We have a platform of 800 extraordinary college and grad student mentors, like the two mentors who you'll hear from later today, working with thousands of students around the globe. And our goal is to help kids figure out who they are and where they want to go and equip them with the mentorship tools and resources to help them get there. And it's all about the identifying what really lights a kid up and giving them the support and guidance to achieve something extraordinary. What really makes us unique is, one, the personalized match. There's nowhere else you can go where you can request a cool college kid who also loves soccer, who also loves Taylor Swift, who also shares ADHD, who also has immigrant parents. Whatever it is that's core to your identity and background, we aim to match you to a mentor who you can see yourself in at Curious Cardinals. And so this should be an hour a week your child looks forward to and a mentor they genuinely look up to. Next is structured and measured. While it's very personalized in our approach, every session starts and ends in the same way, whether you're doing a podcast on family history or conducting scientific research on renewable battery alternatives. All sessions start with a check-in, a rosebud thorn, a clear goal, and end with a reflection and next step action items to stay on track. Third, it's about consistency that compounds. We are not a band-aid solution for Friday's test. This is about a relationship and building trust. And that foundation is what unlocks true breakthroughs and transformation in learning over time. And then finally, at the end of the day, it really is about inspiring a love of learning in kids and helping them identify what lights them up. So these are some of the tenets of what really makes Curious Cardinals unique. And then what we actually do at Curious Cardinals, we have two main offerings, the academic mentorship path and passion project. Academic mentorship, we like to say, is like tutoring, but tutoring is the T word at Curious Cardinals because it has a connotation of being transactional, a remedy for Friday's test. We are so much greater than that. This is about building trust and rapport, learning from someone who gives you the tips to not just excel on Friday's test, but excel in the learning for life. And then the passion project is our main and most popular offering. This is really helping students identify their unique interests and helping them hone those into tangible project deliverables, whether that's conducting and publishing scientific research or starting your own nonprofit. And adding on executive function is very popular across offerings. And of course, pathway finding for folks who need a little bit more of that guided exploration before committing. But we'll speak more about kind of our values and guiding principles today. We just want to make sure you all have all the context on who we are and the vantage point we're speaking from. So I'm going to hand it off to Dot, who's going to introduce herself and what she does, and then take it away, Dot.
Awesome. Thank you, Audrey. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you. I'm Dot. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist. I've been practicing psychotherapy for about 20 years, and I'm also the founder and lead college counselor for Kowal College Counseling. In addition to doing college counseling in very high achieving communities for about 14 years, I've also been a senior administrator in high schools. So I've seen the day-to-day of hundreds of high schoolers every day of their high school career, and I've learned a lot, and I have a deep appreciation for how much our teenagers are doing. It's a different game than we were when we were in high school. Tonight's conversation is titled High School Doesn't Have to Happen to You, and we mean that literally. High school is too important to leave to chance. Not because your teenager has to optimize every single move, but because these years shape their identity, their confidence, their habits, and how they learn so that they can steer their whole life. And that's sort of the backbone of my practice, blending sort of a holistic approach with a rigorous academic approach. And I've spent the last 15 years working with families at that exact intersection that we're talking about tonight. So school pressure, motivation, mental health, identity development, and of course, the college admission system. If we could just go to the next slide and the next one. Awesome. And the way I describe the practice is that we focus in on three areas, almost like what I'd call the high school pie. And the three sections are academics, wellness, and engagement, or some like to think about of it as like community engagement. And if you think about it as a pie, if the slices have got to be what you want them to be, and it needs to be somewhat balanced, or else things kind of twist and turn and your teenager will feel like they're losing control. And a lot about the work of college counseling is about starting early and grounding students to help them understand their values so they can put together their pie the way that feels authentic to them. Next slide, please. So I like to distinguish how I think about supporting teens through high school as holistic versus traditional. So when we think about traditional college counseling and what we hear in the news, it feels a little transactional, right? Focusing narrowly on outcomes. And if you do this, then you get this. And it feels like it's all about optimization. Whereas a holistic approach, which I believe is the approach and philosophy of Curious Cardinals as well, it's treating high school and college admissions as almost like a rite of passage, a developmental milestone. And it integrates all those three pieces of the pie, helping students understand why they're doing what they're doing instead of just like ticking off an endless list of check boxes. And ultimately, I can't ever take my, therapeutic hat off. I believe this process supports emotional regulation, confidence, and self-trust. So that's a little bit about my work in philosophy, and just really glad to be in this conversation with all of you.
Amazing. So without further ado, now that you know who we are and what we do, we're going to dive right in. Dot, I'm looking forward to this discussion with you. I want to first start, and you touched upon this a little bit. If you could reframe one thing about the high school experience for families, and especially in these higher intensity academic environments, what would it be, and why does that shift matter?
Yeah, this is the heart. This is the heart of it all as we guide our students to be human beings, not just college applicants. And I think the shift that I would really want to suggest to families is that more is not always better. And students start to internalize the message that more is better. More APs, more leadership roles, more activities, more, right? And the unspoken belief becomes, if I don't do it all, I will be left behind. And if you shift this mindset from what do I have to do to what do I want to commit to, and help students understand what energizes them and matters to them and how they want to grow, the shift turns from accumulation to intention. Because the truth is, deep engagement can change everything. And it requires trade-offs because you can't do 12 things super deeply. You are only one human with a certain number of hours in the day. All of this is healthier for the nervous system, feels more sustainable over 4 years, and honestly is more compelling in a college application process because it's more about patterns over time in what they see in an application rather than these like spurts, right? But Audrey, what have you seen, and what shifts would you suggest?
I love that, and I completely agree. We have too many of students we see that are running around like crazy people, trying to do everything and not doing anything well, or
Yeah.
doing anything intentionally or with actual impact. So we're completely aligned there. We're all about less is more and doing things of real impact and value. I would say the other thing is that kids are capable of great things, and it doesn't have to be about college. I was speaking to a parent today who said her 10th grader hates this extracurricular thing because it feels so forced and fake.
Mm.
That's not our thing at Curious Cardinals, is to manufacture a child and make you do this thing to get into this school. What we are all about is, who are you and what lights you up? What are your superpowers? What are you most passionate about? What problems do you want to solve in the world? And just because you're 14 doesn't mean you can't accomplish extraordinary things. That foundation of confidence you build in middle school and high school is the foundation that sets you on the course of the trajectory of your life. And so we really try to reframe, like, college is a part of the journey and it's a milestone. And it is something, yes, we can be strategic about, what I like to say, but it's not something to manufacture an identity around. And it is a timeline, and it puts real constraints on, okay, if you want to do something meaningful, you don't have 10 years. What do you want to do before this next milestone of flying off from the nest and going off to college? What do you want to do by the time you get your application for senior year and you can share your story and the impact you've had? And so I think really reframing the timing and the urgency, and empowering students with a sense of agency in the process. And we work with K through 12. We are predominantly middle and high school, but I will say the beauty when we start with sixth graders, seventh graders, is college is not in their vocabulary yet. So we get to help a kid identify their love for environmental science or coding or creative literature way before college enters the picture or their headspace. And so just thinking about, it's not doing these things for college, it's helping your kid find purpose and passion for life. But college is a factor, and thinking of these times as positive constraints rather than forcing functions for inauthenticity. So that's like what I feel strongly about. And I think we've talked about this before, Dot.
Yeah.
Well, going further, one area of expertise that you really bring to the table that I and the folks of us at Curious Cardinals would love to learn from you on is mental health. I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing parents can start doing tomorrow that supports both purpose and mental health without adding to their teen's plate, which is what so many parents are wary of?
Yeah. This is a great question because, and I thought about this a lot because there are a lot of things parents can do, but what's realistic? And I've seen schedules of our high school kids right now, and you're lucky if you get 10 minutes with them, right? And so the number one most helpful thing I think parents can do is create 20 minutes one time a week. Twice if you can get it, but one time a week where your child knows the conversation won't be about school, achievement, or what's next, and name it. Okay, so that sounds like, hey, let's go for our coffee shop drive where we're not talking about grades, college, or anything like that. In high intensity academic environments, teens spend most of their day in evaluation mode, right? Their brains are constantly scanning, like, how did I do on that? What's due? Where do I stand? And this activates a stress response, right? The amygdala, which is still, like developing. It's on alert, the cortisol is elevated, and the brain prioritizes efficiency and protection over reflection every time. So when the brain's stress system is activated, which is a lot of their day, it becomes harder for their prefrontal cortex, the part that's responsible for reflection and long-term thinking, it's harder for it to operate well. So when they feel safe and not measured, their nervous system calms down, right? And then they have room to have the self-awareness, right? And you're helping them by providing, just pushing into these little spaces. Guess what? It'll feel really good. And the next time you ask them, they will be more apt to say yes
Hmm.
and come along with you.
I love that. I've heard that feedback from parents often that the relationship with their kid feels so transactional. Have you done the homework? Have you applied for the summer thing? And I've shared, I love that tangible suggestion. I've also shared creating some sort of ritual for your kid that's about something totally different. My mom, I grew up in New York City in my freshman year of high school. I'm the third child, so the last baby in the nest. And she started a tradition called Culture Sunday. She loves the arts and works in the arts and grew up in Winnipeg, Canada. So wanted to let me know how lucky I was to have access to the arts. So every Sunday we do something cultural. And that was a time when we could connect and bond and have fun and not talk about all the transactional things that seem to dominate high schoolers and their parents' discussions. And also she taught me intellectual curiosity, not beyond the sake of the resume, which is so important. I'm curious, Dot, a lot of people think these two things are in opposition, like college preparedness, high achievement, and mental health. How do you draw the line? And what do you do too? I think sometimes the pressure comes from parents, but in many of these environments, the environments with these kids are in, it comes from the school and their peers themselves. So how do you navigate that tension and when it feels like a choice between one or the other?
Yeah. Thank you for saying that in that way, because nobody's bad or wrong for feeling stressed out about high school or college, right? It's just like the air that we're breathing. And I think it comes down to being really aware and aligned with what your values are as a family and helping your child understand what theirs are too. Literally ask them and give them some choices. So the first thing I do with my students is we do a values exercise and ask them, it's a process, but come to their 3 values that they want to lead them through high school. Nobody ever says prestige, wealth, comparison. Nobody ever says that. But why do those 3 tend to pop up, right? I think the work is not about somehow making the world and your environment believe, right, that college is not stressful or the admissions process is not stressful, but it's choosing to hold something else more important. And that does mean making decisions. And there are so many choice points right through high school where you're making trade-offs and being more okay with it if it's aligned with your values.
I love that. That's really, really resonant.
Yeah. No one ever says those 3 things. Um, Audrey, you've worked with so many mentors, right? So many students and their families, and you're helping them find their passions and what is meaningful to them. what does it actually mean to stand out authentically today beyond sort of, working the system or checking boxes?
Totally. That's a really wonderful question. And yeah, we have a really unique vantage point with all of our extraordinary mentors, and then all the students we're working with. And what I would say, it really means being authentic to who the child is and not trying to manufacture something that's come from anyone but the child themselves. And I think the way you do this is by putting the child in the driver's seat. Too many parents signing other high schoolers up for Curious Cardinals have a consultation call without their high schooler in the room. If you want your kid to imbue this experience with their unique individuality and quirky interests and personality, they need to be front row in the experience itself. And I'll give an example. There's a boy named Matthew. Matthew came to us as a 10th grader who had no idea what he was interested in. His dad was desperate to find something to engage him. And during the console call, it was him and his dad, and he was giving one-word answers to everything. And then we asked Matthew, what do you like to do in your free time when no one's telling you what to do? To which he replied, play video games. And his dad rolls his eyes. And we said, what if we could teach you how to code a video game or design a video game? And he finally lit up. He goes, that would be pretty cool. And so Matthew, we matched him to a video game design mentor. Matthew proceeded to learn video game design. He was so hooked, he learned design and animation. He built a game that is so impressive. It is more impressive than what peers of mine who were software engineers at Stanford could build. It was amazing. A few years later, Matthew's an engineering student at Michigan, and his past summer internships have been at video game companies. And his parents let us know often that this is the thing, this is his spark. And that's an example. And there's many more. We had another student who really wasn't that engaged, and then we encouraged her to have a consult call with our team. And we were able to do what I say is passion excavation, which is you might not think there's anything good about video games or anything good about the TikTok fashion reels that your daughter's obsessed with. You might just see bad, not good, not productive. I don't want anything to do with it. What we will see is an opportunity, a wedge in, something to lean into and something to be curious about that actually we could shift from passive consumption, playing video games alone in your room, to active creation, coding a game, being part of the design process. But the only way that happens is letting and empowering your kid to be part of in the driver's seat and leading the equation, as well as to give them opportunities to shine. Because the contrary to that is I was speaking to a dad of a 9th grader who said his son used to be obsessed with reptiles and war history books and all these quirky things. And now he's a 9th grader and he wants to be cool and he thinks he wants to study finance and he's worried about what his friends think. And one, I encouraged him to have his son lead this experience, but two, I don't think his son had an opportunity to nurture those unique, quirky interests and to have a kind of shot at bat to gain confidence in flexing them in some real or substantial way. So that's what I would say is let your kid drive, be curious, be a passion excavator, and 3, give them opportunities, give them shots at bat, because that's where they prove themselves and that's where they gain confidence, and the quirky or niche or unimportant things they're interested are really valid and have enormous potential.
Thanks, Audrey. A lot of what I talk to students about is their impact on the community, right? How are you engaging in their community? And it's very easy for that to just become, okay, let me check the box for service. But when you dig a little deeper, when you excavate a little bit, you can come up with some really much more meaningful, authentic opportunities. I had one kiddo who just ran all the time, like cross country, track, everywhere running. And that's where they found calm and peace in a really hectic high school life. And their service ended up being creating an opportunity for a blind track meet at their school. Right? Where the whole, they got volunteers and every blind student had a partner runner. And it was this beautiful, such a meaningful moment, not just for the student, but for the whole school. And it was because, like you said, dug a little deeper, like what would be meaningful. I think the other piece too is when we're talking about applicant pools for college, in terms of gaming the system or checking boxes, what I tell families is there's always going to be someone with more boxes checked than you, right? There's always going to be someone who's done more than you. So what I like to pull forward in the application with students is character, right? And that comes through all the other pieces of the application and helping their voices pop off the page.
100%, I love that. And even more in this AI world where it's literally never been easier to create a website or write an essay or a blog post. It's the unique quirkiness that is so unapologetically your child. That is what will set them apart. I just looked at one of our new mentors. She was a freshman at my high school when I was a senior, and she's a student at Yale now. And she's passionate about music, pre-med, and neuroscience. And she's led initiatives where the orchestra has come to the hospital. She's made playlists that help geriatric patients, and the melodies help with neurodegenerative brain recovery. Like the most thoughtful, quirky, bringing together things that I could so see a student who's so focused on college, like, I can't do that, that's too many things, or it doesn't make sense. When you do what's most unconditionally you do the most extraordinarily unique things and ultimately impactful things. I know we share that and believe in that together. Dot, I'm curious, to that end, what I brought up with teen agency. What does real teen agency and confidence look like at 14, 15, or 16? And what gets in the way, especially in high achieving communities like ours, of kids embracing and exemplifying that?
Okay. So every child is different, right? But I will tell you, at age 14, 15, 16, real agency and confidence doesn't look like you have it all figured out, right? The best way you can sort of see teen confidence and agency is when they can make their own choices, stay connected to themselves, even when things aren't going perfectly, or maybe not going well at all, right? And one of the clearest signs is how they show up, even if they're not winning or the president of something. I've worked at schools where every club has co-presidents. So double the number of people can say they were president of something, right? But I actually am most compelled when I have conversations with students in the essay work where they tell me how they led something even without a title, or they were captain of the team that was just terrible, right? I had this amazing conversation about an essay with a student who was captain of his lacrosse team. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. I didn't know that. And he was like, hold on. We lost every game. And yesterday, someone didn't come to practice because they scheduled a haircut, And it was all about, what it means to lead when it's not easy, right? And when your group might not even want to be led. And can you show up? Can you tolerate being in that position, being imperfect, especially when others can see? What gets in the way is the belief that if I'm not the president, if I'm not the best, I shouldn't do it, right? Then the agency and confidence gets replaced by like optics management, right? How is this going to look? How is this going to read on paper? And then really, like, rather than the internal compass, like leading with confidence and agency, all the external worries start to impact the decision making, which we just talked about is hard, right? When your brain is still developing. So it's about staying steady, I would say.
Yeah. Totally. Well, I love to this end, let you take it over and ask some questions with our amazing mentors, Yusuf and Charmaine, who I'm so grateful have joined us today. So they can speak personally as well to this experience as the near peer, but I'll let you take over to get to learn from them as well.
Thank you so much. Well, I would love to just hear you both introduce yourselves for a little bit. Maybe Charmaine, you could kick us off and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hi everyone, I'm Charmaine. I'm a current sophomore at Northwestern University in Illinois. I'm currently studying material science and engineering, and I am so passionate about engineering, especially in young kids. I've recently just started with Curious Cardinals, but I have lots of prior teaching experience with young kids, and I just love seeing them light up with their spark.
Awesome. Thanks, Charmaine. Yusuf.
Hi everyone, I'm Yusuf. I just graduated from Columbia with my master's in biomedical engineering, and before that, I did my undergrad at Boston University in the same. I've been doing engineering for a while now. I'm actually also the head of campus growth at Curious Cardinals, so I'm responsible for the inflow of mentors into Curious Cardinals. So I talk to a lot of people.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, when you think back, I know it's been a minute. When you look back, what mattered most in your high school experience? Not necessarily for college, but just for you as a human.
I mean, Charmaine can take this first. I can answer after her.
Okay, so for me, what I would say helped me grow as a person. I had this amazing volunteering experience over the summer of my sophomore year in high school. And I did the volunteering experience at first just to knock my volunteer hours out of the way in high school. I just wanted to get them done all at the same time so I could have my school years free. But I ended up having such a great time, so I applied for this program to volunteer on a farm and just work as a farm hand. And it was kind of random. My family, my dad's actually in the audience here right now tonight, but my family loves to garden. We have a huge garden and chickens at home. So I had previous gardening experience, but I never worked on a farm or anything like that. And the the owner of the farm, she accepted me gladly, and I worked for 2 days a week, about like 8 hours a day, um, and over the summer, and I just had so much fun being outside the entire summer. I think that was so great. I wasn't cooped inside a house, and I also got to eat a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables because it was a farm, and so they kind of did allow us to just eat whatever we wanted. There was one time I was plucking raspberry canes, and there were some old raspberries left, and I just got to eat them. And so I learned so much about myself that I just enjoy being outside, enjoy having my hands in the dirt and the feeling of manual labor.
So if for me, honestly, I would say I would have spent more time on my hobbies growing up. When I was young, I was born and raised in the UAE, and when I was growing up there, the global supply chain wasn't yet so well established, and I used to love space. But there wasn't much I could do about it. I couldn't access like telescopes super easily or things like that, and the UAE is a very small country, so there's a lot of light pollution. Uh, but now that I'm older, I once a year go on a trip in the middle of August to see the Perseids meteor shower, right? So it's something that stuck with me throughout all these years, and it's a theme I see with my friends as well. If I can actually point to Audrey, I don't know if Audrey does anything that she does, like if she does anything now that she used to do in high school, but she used to run in high school. And last year I watched her run the New York City Marathon. So it really stuck, right? Uh, and you know this happens to all my friends across all fields. So I would have spent more time on my hobbies. And actually, because of the Perseids meteor shower, now I have a goal to visit all the national parks. This is actually my national park water bottle. And it's very surprising to me, but it's the most thing that stuck with me throughout all of these years.
It's beautiful. It sounds like both of you are really inspired by that moment with your relationship just with the natural world. Um, um, okay, so we have a lot of parents, mostly all parents in the Zoom room. What is one thing your parents did that supported your growth in high school when you look back now? And what's something they stressed about that you wish they hadn't?
I can take this one first again, and then Yusuf can go. One thing that my dad actually did when I was in high school that was so amazing. So I joined the robotics club my sophomore year of high school because my freshman year was COVID year. I mean, it was coming out of COVID year, so it was still a little hard to be in school and be hybrid and join clubs, but I wasn't there for half the week and it was so weird. So sophomore year, I decided to join robotics club, and I wasn't super involved at first. It was a little scary for me, especially being one of, at the time, 4 girls on a almost like 30-person team. But at the end of the competition season, we made it to World Championships, and though I hadn't been super involved, I of course really wanted to go. It was in Texas, and my dad volunteered to be a chaperone, and so in that way, we were able to get more kids to go to the competition, and I had my dad there to chaperone and for him to see more about the clubs that I was involved in high school and what I was interested in.
So for me, it was, my parents were always very supportive about my scientific hobbies. So they always, tried to foster that as much as they could. Uh, but what I wish would have happened differently was there was this idea that you only get one shot at everything, right? So you get one shot at college, you get one shot at the application. There's just one opportunity to do everything. And as I grew older, I realized that's really not the case. Life is nothing if not flexible. Uh, I actually the out of high school, the school that rejected me, that was my dream school, I ended up giving the commencement speech at the graduation 4 years later, even though they rejected me, right? I transferred and so on and so forth. So you get more than one opportunity to do things. And yeah, there is that flexibility, and I think it just allows you to recenter and relax just a bit, right?
That's a good message just as an adult person, not just as a high school student or college student. Thank you. Thank you both. Um, you know, parents aren't the only ones who worry, right? And I spend a lot of time in one-on-one meetings with high schoolers. And I wonder for you both, what did your like 15 or 16-year-old self worry about in high school that ended up really not mattering? And you can get as specific as you want.
So I would say at 15, 16, I was again like a sophomore, and I had started to think about some stuff that would, yes, look good on college applications, but would also make a really big impact. Like, I started to look into volunteering opportunities, and I saw that the presidential service volunteer or presidential volunteer service award was a thing, and that you just collected so many hours for volunteering that you got this big award. And I was like, wow, that is so crazy. What if I did that? And I also thought about doing an app competition with my friend, and neither of these things ended up panning out. But that's obviously fine. These are big national impacts, and I ended up actually being able to make a bigger impact in my local community. My senior year, I hosted a STEM competition or STEM fair with a um, like poster board presentation for middle schoolers, and they had such amazing projects, and we had maybe like 200 people come see the fair throughout the day, and it was just so amazing to see everyone connect over something like this in my local community, people that like lived in my town and around my town.
Thanks for mentioning that, Charmaine, because that's one conversation I have with a lot of families is that local impact is really powerful. Thanks for mentioning that, Yusuf.
I wish I saved my answer for the last one for this one. I would stress again that I placed so much emphasis on what initially happened, that when I received my first rejection, I felt my life was over, right? But it's not that deep, right? Uh, you know, you learn more when things don't go your way than when they do, and so just taking advantage of that, because you want there to be controlled discomfort. Um, so I would, if I could go back, I would put less pressure on myself on having like the most idealized and linear path.
Thanks, Yusuf. Wise words. I think we are going to move into the parent Q&A now. And Jules is going to help us moderate. And I believe you can put some questions in the chat, or how do you want to do it, Jules?
Yes, we can feel free to put questions in the chat, or you can unmute and ask live. I'll go ahead and ask. Someone already wrote a question in the chat. Dot, I think you can kick us off with answers here. How do you bring the kid to counseling when they've made their lives so busy? How can we start being more intentional? I'll let Doc go. I'm sure Audrey will weigh in too on how busy kids really are and how we find balance in that.
Yeah, so the question is how do you intentionally make room for counseling in the student schedule?
That's the question in the chat was, yeah, how do they make room for counseling is how they started it, and I think it's just around busy lives in general and how to start being intentional at this stage.
Yeah. So I think when you look at high school as a 4-year arc, ninth grade, you're really exploring, right? Try new things. There are all these new opportunities you haven't had before, and you're like dabbling, right? And the commitment tends to be lower because you're not necessarily leading, right? No one's expecting the new ninth grader to run everything. But as you get into 10th grade, you want to encourage your child to start making choices based on values, based on what's meaningful to them. And you can even sketch out a calendar with hours, right? And if it's too much, they will see, right, that there's not actually enough time to sleep, eat, shower, those kinds of things. I shadowed a student once when I was head of a high school from when she left her house, commuted with her to school, and stayed with her at school until her last basketball game ended at 10 p.m. And I saw what she did all day. There was not much more than 5 minutes of space for her to sit and think. So you do want to sit down with them and just take a realistic look. I don't recommend therapy or counseling for teenagers younger than about 14 to be over Zoom, because it can be really distracting, right? You can be getting text messages, you're getting alerts. I had one student's cell phone in my pocket during an assembly, because he wasn't supposed to have it, for about 30 minutes. That phone buzzed in my pocket every 10 seconds. Truly, every 10 seconds. I thought something was wrong, but it was like video game alerts and friend alerts. It was a lot. So, but at around 15 or so, depending on your kid, I do think counseling over Zoom during a free block during their day, that's really common.
And I will say to that end, turn off notifications on your phone because they're literally features, not bugs. They're features in these products built to distract us and fragment our attention. So you as a parent and you for your kids, all my notifications are off. So I choose what I have agency over. But it's a reminder, like digital health and digital cleanliness are one of the biggest time sucks when we actually examine a kid's calendar. They think they're so busy. How much time are they spending on Snapchat or FaceTiming friends or scrolling on Instagram and TikTok? A dangerously large amount. I would also say to that question, busy doing what? It's like this is a classic thing in startups or team members. Like, you're so busy. What are you doing? Like, what are you working towards? Why are you so busy? Are you contributing to your community? Are the things you're doing you're actually enjoying and meaningful to be part of? And so it's like, I would pause being so busy if there doesn't feel like any intentionality there, because that's never serves anyone. I see the next question we had, Jules, if you want to read out loud, or if we want JC to ask their question out loud.
I'm happy to read it. What is your experience helping kids who are talented in multiple areas but uncertain about their career path? Audrey, do you want to kick us off with some pathfinding?
Yeah, I mean, at first I would want to understand, what are they talented in? What do they love? And as I shared the example of the mentor Parisa, who's music, neuroscience, and pre-med, and is literally bringing musicians to hospitals and making playlists based on neurobiological healing in the brain for geriatric patients. I would want to understand if there's a way to, what's the intersection of the things they're interested in, because there are times when we have to make compromise, but in figuring out what I think a student is interested in and incorporating that in what they actually pursue, that can be a real opportunity to truly differentiate them. So that's one way I think about it. If truly that's not feasible and it's like diving and video games, and there's not really a way to seamlessly weave them together, I think that it's also a matter of, are these two different things that they can pursue in their extracurriculars? What does the plate that they're juggling look like? Does it have to be a choice? Is this one of the things something they can pursue in the summer and another is during the school year? So I would try to understand how, again, we don't have to too prematurely and unnecessarily narrow and tell a kid. But I would also, again, that's where it takes time to explore and figure out what you care about so you can kind of hone in further. JC, I saw you raise your hand if you want to give some more context, and then Dot can chime in as well.
Thank you. That is what I wanted to do. I put two questions in there, and they are for two different kids. They're both talented and just have different sort of states of being, if you will. And so the one that you just spoke about is interested in art, I would say music a little, but also very much interested in languages and international travel and study. So, and business is thrown in there too somehow, but just not sure how to bridge that. And so I'm just trying to get a feel for how you guys would address that as a mentor to help them with doing things like building their story and that
Yeah,
sort of thing.
that's a great question, and thanks for providing the additional context. First of all, if you are interested in working with a Curious Cardinals mentor, we'd encourage you and your child to schedule a consult call on the team so we could ask more of those questions and help define your goal. And then I'd figure out one of it, and that's where Dot said ninth grade is amazing for exploration. You do need to explore and figure out, but too many people, I think, get paralyzed by not knowing and not knowing where to start, but they never even take the process of embarking on the journey of exploration very concretely. And if we were speaking individually, I want to ask more questions to understand. If your child's interested in art and music and business, why don't they write their own music album, produce it on Spotify, and design the playlist and design the graphics on Canva, and learn graphic design and art, and learn songwriting and storytelling, learn how to cohesively put it together. And the business part, how do they get listeners? How do they actually get people to listen to their music? How do they find places and venues to perform? They love travel and language. Is there a summer immersion experience they can do with a program this summer? When I, in high school, did a abroad program in Spain and stayed with a family that did speak in English, that was one of the most transformative summer experiences. And so that's like two immediate actionable ideas I would suggest for how to embark on the exploration of those things. But you only are going to know what you want to do or trying. And whether at Curious Cardinals, we help you hone that into a passion project you can start with, or we design a curated pathfinding beginning kind of sampling journey to start. You can go either way. And I don't know if you want to ask your other question, and perhaps Doc can chime in as well if you have anything from your vantage point.
That was great. I definitely am interested in doing one of those consultations. And then the other kiddo, that sounds great. She would love that. She's already asked about being a foreign exchange student, but I'm not too keen on it. And the other kiddo of mine is more interested in the science arena, and he's younger, but will be a ninth grader next year, and is one of those kids who has, both of them do, but he particularly is really strong in spatial reasoning. So engineering, he's very interested in coding. And one of the reasons that I'm even here is to just with for kids graduating now and just the speed at which AI is moving, just trying to get a feel for different opportunities that are going to be available for them because he's taught himself to code and he wants nothing to do with AI teaching him how to code. He wants to do it himself, which I understand, but still, just so he builds games, and so he's evolved in his interest in different types of engineering. And so I know you have a young man on here who is an engineer. So I just wanted to know kind of how you would guide that, but it's kind of he wants to do that more than anything, like just pursue the science, and he's very interested in astronomy and astrophysics. as well.
They
So
see, then I would encourage him to do it and give him a swing at bat. We have a Timeless Skills in an AI Era pitch competition that celebrates the skills that will never go out of style. Submissions are due May 9th. Have him work towards a project and do just that. There's nothing wrong with that. I actually just posted with Rebecca Winthrop, who leads education at the Brookings Institute, talking about should kids still learn to code. And she said, if your kid is interested in coding, they should sure as hell learn how to code. Because if you want to use AI to help with your coding, you need to understand how coding actually works. And so if your kid generally has something they love and are interested in, encourage them to run with it. There's not even, I think you have the answer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You want to notice as a parent where the sparks are, right? And also reflect it back to them. And they may not acknowledge the reflection back in the moment, but over time, I promise you that it's sinking in. It's going in, especially if your kiddo's not quite in ninth yet.
Awesome, love it. Well, we will move on to the next question since we have lots of questions to get to. Someone asked, how would you find the right balance for a teen who is reluctant to do anything outside of school? Dot, why don't we kick it off with you?
Yeah. Well, I just have a clarifying question. Is that anything outside of school, like outside of academics, or anything outside of like the high school or the middle school environment?
Yeah, she's in eighth grade, but she's reluctant for any other activities outside of the school. She does good, like gifted and all of that, but outside, there's no extracurricular. And when I ask, very hesitant. She does robotics right now, but not fully invested, not fully out as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure you've tried this. Of course, the question that pops into my head is like, what's the block? What's holding her back? If we want that's kind of my first lane that I would be going down. When I see this, I also like a lot of times, like for something that doesn't seem as much of a natural passion for students, but still good to do, for example, service. I often suggest to students, like, is there a friend who you'd want to do this with? Right? Like you guys could do it together. You can tell them that I said it was good for you both to do, or trying something as a family. So I know families often will have maybe once or twice a month, they go and do something service oriented together. I do think this goes back to the concept of mattering. And Jennifer Wallace has an amazing book that's all about mattering. It's called Never Enough. I highly suggest it to anyone. You'll read it in like 2 days. But when students feel like if they're not there, they will be missed, right? That's what brings them meaning in an activity. And Vivek Murthy says this as well, our former Surgeon General, right? He said that when students engage in service and feel like they are impacting, they begin to feel like they matter and then they show up. If I'm not here, I will be missed. And the little soft pushes you can do so they're not alone in it at first might be one way.
Yusuf, I know you've talked about resonating with this profile of kid. Do you have any advice for the parents struggling to get their kid to explore extracurriculars or engage in these discussions?
I mean, you need to tie what they do with their interests, right? So I work with a student that's disengaged, but I know he loves Formula One, right? So we're working on a pitch to bring Formula One to New York, right? So we'll map out, the circuit, where it'll take place, things like that. So it's you meet them where they are, and that usually does the trick. No one's not passionate by nature, right? That doesn't exist. And I would say
Yeah,
that's how I do it.
no, I agree. I think it's just that she's not able to verbalize it or not able to say, like, identify within herself what she's interested in. And then a lot of pressure as well. I'm from India, so there's how I grew, raised her was also like, do this, do this, do this. I always gave her what to do, and she did. And now I'm at the point like, you take the reins, and she's like, I don't know what to do. Do I go to the robotics competition or do I go to the debate? And I'm like, you decide. And she can't decide. So that's where like she is not able to make that decision for herself. And then because she cannot decide, she's like, okay, you know what? I'm not just going to do it.
If I can chime in here really quick, I love the suggestion of doing something together as a family, because, of course, like with the friends, like that's someone you are familiar with and you're doing something new together. My family always loves museums, and in Boston, we have the Boston Children's Museum, and my parents would let me and my younger brother pick whatever we wanted to do at the museums, in general. But at the Boston Children's Museum, there's this one floor with building blocks, and me and my brother love that place. We would just go there every single time, sit there for 4 hours, and my dad or my mom, they would just wait patiently, not rush us or anything. We got to lead, and that's just what we wanted to do. And so I feel like that really helped me and kind of helping me know that I am in control.
That sounds great. Thank you. Yeah, the service and doing something with the family. Thank you.
I think we'll answer one final question, Jules, if you want to read Mo's out loud, and Scott and I can weigh in, and then we'll start to wrap it up.
Awesome. I love this question, so I'm glad you're answering it. Mo asked, I find that many students really enjoy the humanities and social sciences, but feel the pressure to pursue science or engineering because it feels more tangible or safe. How do you navigate conversations with students who prematurely give up on interests because they don't think they'll make money or have career opportunities?
The world has the future. Why don't you go Dot first and I'll answer after.
Okay, I think we're both nodding about the same thing. So I've been in college counseling a long time, and 13 years ago, students, at least they weren't verbalizing as much to me their concerns about future income and career prospects. In the past, I would say 7 years, that is the first thing students talk to me about, because the first question I ask every student I work with is, do you want to go to college? And if they say yes, which they often do if they're talking to me, I ask them why. Right? And it's because, and they all very responsible answers, right? I want to be able to support myself. I want to have a life for me and my future family similar to the one I have now, right? They're very much thinking about that. So, and I get it. And I'm kind of like really impressed in many ways. And what I tend to tell students is that we don't want to look at life after high school as this straight line, right? It's gonna be windy, it's gonna go up and down, and you're gonna change careers most likely. People don't stay in one career their whole lives like they used to. So you want to start with what you're passionate about and see what's there. And then also, I want to start talking to them about what careers are actually out there. Particularly here, where I am, kind of Bay Area, Silicon Valley, what they see is STEM, right? They're not seeing kind of a lot of other career paths. So just like bringing those to the fore.
Totally agree. The other thing I would say, and this is a stat from 2025, so it changes every year, but 87% of the jobs that will exist in 2030 do not exist today. The world has never been changing at a more rapid rate than ever before. Jobs that don't require human interaction, jobs that like coding at a desk alone without engaging with anyone, those are the jobs that are going away. If you hear, the co-founder of Anthropic recently was cited saying that humanities has never been more important. And I've experienced that firsthand. I have taught 150 plus intro to AI workshops to families. I am a history major. It is my debate and research and critical thinking, problem solving skills that allow me to use AI incredibly effectively. And so we're actually might see a shift in the paradigm that oracy skills, the ability to connect with others, EQ, emotional intelligence, creativity, communication, that has actually never mattered more. So I would say I would help them realize what this uncertain future is looking like and help them realize what can only humans do and what can AI do. That's part of why we're doing this timeless skills pitch competition. We want to give kids an opportunity to have these discussions, engage in this conversation. What are the timeless skills? But that's another thing I keep in mind is the world is changing vastly. And to that end, in a world where there might not be many jobs, it has never been so essential to help a kid find a purpose. Because we might have a future where we don't have jobs and we just have to pursue our hobbies. And human beings need a sense of purpose in their work life. And so that's all the more reason that it's really existential. Help your kid find what lights them up, help them find the thing that gives them a sense of mattering.
Okay, I think that was our last question. And we're just going to close up. And Audrey, maybe we can each give just like a little parting nugget of wisdom. Well, if I could leave you with one thing, it really is the title of this webinar, which is don't let high school just happen to you or your child, right? Really sit and help your child make meaningful decisions and ask them really clearly about the values, right? When and where do you feel most seen at school? Like really active questions and just listen, right? Because colleges are reviewing applications, but you are raising a human, and there is a little overlap, but 10 years from now, looking back, no parent says, wow, I really wish I coached my kiddo to take more AP classes. No one ever says that, right? They say, I wish I had more time with my kid and I enjoyed the time we had.
That was such a beautiful parting message, Shop. I couldn't agree more. And I would just second that in saying, especially in this AI era where it's never been easier to create anything, that means the motivated kids, AI in this new future, it's rocket fuel. You can go farther than you've ever gone before. But for the unmotivated kids, it's never been easier to cut corners on your learning. And so our biggest thing is how can we help kids find what motivates them? Yes, sure, for college, but really for life, to live a life of purpose and meaning. And the way to do that is to be curious, to excavate, and to follow what's authentic to your kid. And you as parents, parents have the best of intentions, and often the answer is right in front of you if you just listen and let your kid be in the driver's seat. So thank you all for joining us. I hope that between Dot and the Curious Cardinals community, we can be supportive resources for you all going forward. And thank you so much for the thoughtful engagement throughout today's discussion.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Well, Dot, we'll follow up separately. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll recap separately.
Okay, perfect. Safe travels. Bye.
Bye.